We can be both good and bad. Just because we have done some bad things, it doesn't make us bad people. So if we can widen our perception of ourselves and of other people, there's less attachment to this idea of good and bad.
Welcome to the D8 Training Podcast. Today, I am super excited to have Katie from Radiant Aura joining us. Katie is a gifted practitioner specialising in kinesiology, reiki, soul regression therapy, and meditation. In simple terms, Katie is someone who helps individuals uncover blocks and limiting beliefs, guiding them towards greater clarity and empowerment. She is someone in my corner that I've been seeing for over 6 years and has been instrumental in helping me navigate many turbulent times, allowing my life to flourish and become even more magical and amazing. Welcome, Katie. Thank you for taking the time to come on the D8 Training Podcast.
Hi, Anne-Marie. So excited to be here.
You've made such a significant impact on my life, and I'm so grateful to have you on my team. The benefits I gained from our sessions have been invaluable. And I wanted to have you on the show to share your insights with everyone, because I truly believe the work you do can benefit people of all ages, genders, races, everyone. So can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and your journey into this field of health and healing?
Thanks so much for your kind words, Anne-Marie. And it's interesting because how I got here was by being in your seat probably over a decade ago now. So I started out in the corporate world and I was doing well on the surface. And yet underneath all that, I just felt this sense of disconnection with the work that I was doing. It was highly demanding, so I was exhausted. I had burnt out a few times along the way, and it was through finding first yoga and meditation and then spiritual healing, energy healing, kinesiology that helped me get to where I am today. And one of the decisions I made was that I wanted to help others who were in the same situation that I was in, feeling that sense of being alone in the world. I think so often we feel how we feel and we feel like we're the only person in the world who feels that way. So being able to help others move through their lives with more ease, with more sense of feeling supported, feeling heard, feeling understood, was definitely one of the goals that I had in starting Radiant Aura. And funnily enough, this healing work has always run through my blood. I just didn't know it because before I started uni, so when I was in year 12, I had wanted to study music therapy because I played the piano, and somehow I was really attracted to the idea of using music for healing. And so it feels ironic that, a few decades later, having gone through the experience of being in the corporate world, I have come back to this vibrational healing. And I really feel like I needed to have had that experience in the corporate world to understand what being stressed is like, to understand what feeling lost is like, to feeling all of the things that the majority of people feel. So I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for the journey, but it's been a long and winding road.
How do our belief systems influence our experiences in health and healing?
Most of us work with a confirmation bias, and a simple example of that I often use is that whenever let's say we want to buy a new car and we've decided on what car we want to buy, suddenly we see that make of car everywhere on the road. That is a form of our thought and our belief system guiding the experiences that we see, because 80% of the sensory input that we get in our day, we filter out. Otherwise, we'd be so overwhelmed with the information that we take in through the day. And so we often will filter it based on our past experience. We filter it based on our belief system, whether that is conditioned belief system that we've inherited from our parents, or a belief system that we have adopted through the experiences that we have had in life. It's said that 80 to 90% of our thoughts that we have each day is exactly the same as the thoughts that we had the day before. And so if thoughts do create our reality, then you can imagine that making big changes is incremental and gradual and slow because of that. So often I challenge my clients and students to play around with that. As it can be as simple as if you walk to the shops taking the same route every day, or you go to work taking the same route because it's the most efficient. Try taking a different way. Sometimes if you're walking, even just walking on the opposite side of the street changes your perspective completely. You can also try brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Even though it seems so simple, and for people who are efficient and have, not a lot of time to waste, it seems inefficient. But what it does is that it primes our mind and our body to welcome something new in. It breaks that, it hits pause on that habitual loop that we are often in. So we get up in the day, in the morning, and we often reach for the same breakfast. We have a routine. We go to work, we come home, we have our night routine, and then we go to sleep and we start again. And so it doesn't actually leave a lot of room for us to try new things. This is why holidays can actually break patterns. We tend to be able to adopt a new pattern when we're in a different environment because we're not bound by the continuous loop or the habitual cycles that we're in. And so the belief system really just informs the way we perceive the world. On a deeper level, our beliefs that we hold about ourselves then creates the kind of experiences that we have. Let's say if you hold this belief that what you say doesn't matter, because as a child, you might have been one of 4 children and your voice is never heard because your siblings had a louder voice or had more of a desire to be heard. And so you hold this belief that what you have to say doesn't matter. What happens is that you then attract situations that confirm that. So there's that confirmation bias. But also on a higher level, we attract that so that we can break through that belief as well. So it's sort of a two-pronged thing. That belief helps us invite in situations that confirm and validate that belief. It's like, see, I told you, I tried to speak up and they didn't hear me. But simply those experiences are there to trigger you to then look at that more deeply and go, how can I break that habit? How can I transform that so that those experiences no longer mean as much to me anymore? I hope that answered your question.
That was perfect. Gets me thinking too, like I know actually it was probably just in the last 2 weeks, there's this person, we just don't see eye to eye and my perception of them isn't great. I always expect the worst from her. And I'm like, well, I'm making up these stories. So I'm going to start saying, okay, what can I say that's nice in her? How can I make this story that into her into a positive person? However, because I've been conditioned in this belief, I think it's been over 16 years now, my mind and my body were like resisting, going, no, she's done this and remember this and remember that. And I felt like I was having this argument in my mind about it. So every time she comes up, and I'll be seeing her recently, I've been working through that. Can you explain the process of shifting where, I guess, in my situation of that judgment of her to more acceptance, and how can this impact our emotional and our physical health?
Even though in this area seems very unknown to a lot of people, there has actually been a lot of research that has been done in the arena of mind-body wellness. There is a researcher by the name of Emoto, and he was a Japanese researcher who studied water and the way our thoughts, thoughts are just frequencies, right? So thoughts are energetic frequencies that gets broadcast out into the world. And so he looked at using different words which hold the frequencies of emotions. Let's say, for example, anger or love. He also played different music to water. Then he froze it. So when we imprint the water with the energy of love, the frozen water formed perfect crystal. Whereas when we say things like hate and war and anger, the water didn't form into a coherent state at all. So energy plays a big role in that it can transform how we feel, right? So you probably understand it from the perspective of how music can really pump you up for a training session at the gym, right? So you're not going to play slow classical music because it just doesn't really generate that same.
Doesn't want to make me lift more weights.
No, exactly. So that's a form of using energy to shift our internal state. There's also an experiment that I think you would be interested in, which is, it's called the milkshake experiment. You can look that up. And it was done by a researcher from Yale University, and she had made a batch of milkshake. Then she put it into 2 different containers, one that was labeled as low calorie and the other one as high calorie, as in it's an indulgent treat, whereas the other one was labeled as the low fat version. And she gave the 2 different versions, and it's exactly the same milkshake. She gave the 2 version to 2 groups of people, and they actually measured that usually signals to the body whether it's hungry or whether it's satiated. Now, she had the people look at the label for at least 30 minutes to an hour so that they already had formed an opinion about the milkshake. And then they drank the milkshake. And what's interesting is that the group that drank what they thought was the high-calorie milkshake was actually more satiated from a physiological point of view. So the body had reduced the amount of ghrelin, which is the hormone that signals to the body whether it's hungry or not, because it's actually told the body it's more full than the group who was drinking the low-fat version. So we have the power to actually shift our physical reality. We've just forgotten because we weren't taught this in high school. We weren't taught this throughout our lives. And so that's the power of using our mind to affect our physiology and also the physical experiences and circumstances that we have. So the thing is, we often will get caught up in life with distractions. We spend a lot of our time looping around thinking about the past, what's gone wrong, how it could have been better. We get hung up on, like this person that you're talking about, we get hung up on all the wrongs that they've done to us. And that ties up a lot of our energy. Let's say we've got 100% of energy that we have available to us, and so much of that is consumed through the looping that happens. So when we can clear that, whether it's through energy healing, physical exercise is also a really good way to help the body clear. We clear toxins, but it's also the toxic thoughts that we clear as well. And we then make more energy available for us to actually utilize power to then create. We can then go and create what it is that we want in life, rather than continue to ruminate on the things that have already happened and don't actually exist anymore. It's in the past, but yet we keep bringing it back into the present reality and we rehash it a little bit more.
Probably dramatize it as well. Actually, it was a lot more worse than it was, or a lot more better.
Yes, absolutely. I'm talking about it as if it's really simple, and it is simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy because when we have had that personal experience with someone, and it can get embedded into our cellular memory. So with that woman that you spoke about, can we pretend that we know nothing about her?
When I go to think about it and I'm trying to create new stories, it also means that I have to let go and almost admit that maybe I was wrong in the thoughts about her. And then it's like, but that makes me wrong. And then I started questioning that, where it's like, all right, let's create a new story. I wasn't wrong, I was right. However, now she's changed. She only changed yesterday. And I'm like, if we're going to create a story, I might as well create a story that serves me and works for me personally.
So that comes back to your original question about judgment, because we tend to want to label things and people as good or bad. So this is our judgment, someone being good or bad. And so when we move into acceptance, then we allow people to be who they are in any given moment, right? Because we ourselves can do bad things. Most of us have. We don't like it, right? We like ourselves to be seen from the good light only, but in truth, a lot of us have done things that we may not be proud of. And so that judgment keeps us locked in that need to, whether it is to hide the things that we haven't done so well in and only highlight the things that we do well in. Now, part of healing is actually allowing ourselves to forgive ourselves for what we have done that might have not been so great, so that we can come to a place where our perspective widens. So it's not just saying, I'm just going to focus on the good things and I'm going to ignore the bad things and hide that in the closet. But I understand that people are both good and bad. So we're moving from the concept of things having to be either or, like one or the other, towards this idea of encompassing both, right? So we can be both good and bad. Just because we have done some bad things, it doesn't make us bad people. So if we can widen our perception of ourselves and of other people, there's less attachment to this idea of good and bad, right? So it's like, if I hold the idea that she has good qualities to offer me, it doesn't negate what she has done that has potentially hurt me, but at least I'm opening the door to the potential of her being able to, or even just for me to have a good interaction with her. So that's the passage from judgment into acceptance, which is what takes us there often, is that sense of forgiveness. Can I forgive myself? Can I forgive the other person? And can I come to this place of acceptance where good can coexist with bad?
And that's where, well, through many of our sessions that we have, and we talk about the energy, and it's beyond that physical world and the body. I sometimes find it hard to articulate when we have our sessions, but I feel like this huge invisible weight has just been lifted off my shoulders, like a stagnant energy has moved and then it's been released. And then I'll go to the gym and I might be able to lift more weights or do extra reps, or something that seemed like such a big problem or drama, I'm able to see it through a new perspective. Are you able to explain energy and how this shift in energy is connected with changes in mind, body, and that emotional well-being?
Yeah, hopefully your audience will agree that we are all made up of energy. Even if you can't kind of conceptualize it, we understand that communication between different parts of our body is by electrical impulses. So there's this biomagnetic field that surrounds the body and governs the body. When we encounter certain challenges, we can stop the energy flowing as well as it would normally. It's almost like putting a boulder in the middle of a river, and it just makes it a little bit harder for it to move through. So from a healer's perspective, or energetic healing, often what happens is that there is a reorganization that happens that brings the body back to its original flow state. The languaging that we use around it is that we bring it back into balance. And so when we bring it back into balance, we then trust that your own body intelligence will then be able to take you further, right? And so whether that means healing a physical condition or to be able to lift weights, It frees you from certain patterns that might hold you back. Often straight after healing, people will feel that sense of lightness, that sense of centeredness. I see that as a reintegration of body, mind, spirit, right? So often what happens in our day when we encounter challenges is that we become fragmented. Our soul is wanting us to do one thing, our body is wanting us to do something else, and then our mind is trying to get us to do something else. And so we get frazzled, we get stuck because we don't know which way to go. And when we receive energy, which is simply life force energy, right? And so it's the energy that animates us. It's the energy that's behind what makes us alive. It's the energy that helps plants grow. And so when we receive this dose of energy, we can then use that, and different people will use that dose of energy differently, depending on what is happening for them at that time. That energy can help them move through a certain hurdle in life. And so often they will suddenly be able to feel more confident. Like if they had an important meeting or job interview, they suddenly are able to access a more confident part of themselves.
Is there like a hack or something we can do when our energy is feeling low and we've got that interview or we've got something and we want to access that confident energy for the job interview? We know we can do the job. We're capable of it. And then as we're about to go into it, get that energy just to lift us up.
Yeah, I always feel that the breath is our secret weapon. Our breath connects us. The breath connects the body with our conscious self. And so if we can bring our awareness back to the self, we actually allow ourselves to bring any scattered energy back into the body as well. Because when you're focusing on your breath, you've got no availability to then be entangled with anything that's going to stop you from being with that breath. Bring you back into that present moment. And you can even visualize all of you coming back to yourself. So you can almost visualize your energy coming back into you. And so you might have energy being threaded to your child who might be having a hard day at school. You might have a thread of energy worried about how that job interview will go. You might have a thread of energy hooked into your current job that you want to leave. That's why you're going to the interview. So there's a lot of things around us that can pull energy away from this very moment. And so if we allow the breath to bring us back into the body and into the now, I can almost just sort of imagine I'm withdrawing those threads of energy back to myself just for this moment. It doesn't mean I'm suddenly not caring what happens to my child at school. It doesn't mean that I'm suddenly not worried about certain things. It just means that right now I'm choosing to gather my energy back because I need it, because I'm feeling frazzled, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And so allowing all that energy to come back within yourself, you've got more available for yourself.
Which is important to be able to perform at your best and be able to help more and serve.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the way we are today, it's such a fast-paced world we live in, and most people are doing at least two things, if not more, at a time. We eat while we watch TV and have a conversation at the same time. That's already three things. To sort of get through a typical work day, you're literally trying to juggle three things at once, right? You're trying to solve a problem while you're answering this email and you've got someone standing at your door. And another example of focusing on your breath is trying to single task. We often pride ourselves at being able to multitask. But
I think that's a myth.
I think it's a myth too. I have really tried to develop my skill in monotasking, and I know every time I do it, it is so much more efficient because you get what you need done in a faster time, and also it just comes through faster. there are definitely moments in my day I've got 5 tabs open and I'm trying to search this, and while I'm waiting for the results to come out, I'll look at something else. And I think it's not an all or nothing, so it's not about all of us moving to a farm and living the slow life. It's really about how can I insert some of the more calming routines into my day, right? So how can I take that breath more often during my day? It's not about feeling zenned out all day, every day. And often I will recommend people use the breath exercise, pair it with something that they do several times a day. So say, for example, at the end of a phone call or at the end of a Zoom meeting, or maybe even every time you go to the bathroom, although some people don't even go to the bathroom all day if they're having a stressful day. So that's sometimes not a good idea. Or you can set an alarm on your phone. How can I cultivate this new practice of checking in with myself more often? And so an extension of that I suggest people can do is to, as well as just focusing on the breath, actually ask yourself, how am I feeling in this moment and what do I need? Because every time we interact with someone, we will say, how are you? But how often do we actually direct that question at ourselves and really mean it?
If I ever ask myself.
Yeah, exactly. When we start to learn the language of our body, we can then better able to meet our own needs. So I'm feeling nervous about this job interview, and then we let that anxiety kind of carry us instead of actually bringing that sense of self back and go, right, okay, I'm feeling this anxious energy. What do I need in this moment? Just before a job interview is probably not the time to start cultivating that practice. I often say it's too late. It's not too late. The best time is when you are feeling less stressed. How can you start to learn to tune into yourself and to your own needs? How am I feeling right now?
And I love that, how you said to set up like a trigger or something so that you remind yourself to breathe and ask it, whether it's hanging up a phone call or going to the bathroom or even walking through the door. It's like, okay, I'm triggering that. How am I feeling, and checking in.
Yeah.
But what about the opposite? So, many people have heard and they've described energy in a room, so they can sense, they might walk into the room and they can just sense the tension. Like, I remember once being around a couple and I didn't notice it at the time that I spent with them, but when I left, I just felt really depleted. And I got into the car, and then back then he was my boyfriend, now husband, Nevin, and I started bickering. And after about 5 minutes, well, what are we bickering about? And neither of us could figure it out. And then I realized later on that the couple we were with actually had an argument and were going through some challenges. So we had attracted their energy. How can we protect our energy, especially when we're around energy that doesn't serve us?
I like that question because I don't usually give the standard answer. So yes, you can. How can we strengthen ourselves? How can we strengthen the field so that that energy no longer has an edge over us? I tend not to promote the idea of protection simply because when we feel the need to protect ourselves, we put ourselves into a disempowered state, because what we're saying is that other people have the power to influence how I feel, right? And no one can have that power unless we give that to them. Even though a lot of the times that's subconscious, the more we work on building our own sense of self, the more we work on our own sense of who we are, the more we will be able to maintain that sense of self, even as we encounter energy that might bring us down, right? 2 other things. One is that we often think that an external event triggers an emotion, but the truth is it's actually the inner emotion that is already existing within us. It's that which triggers the external event. Remember how before we talked about how if there is a certain belief system, that will then invite certain circumstances to appear. If I have an unresolved emotion within me, I'm going to use the example of anger because that is a common one. Often we suppress the anger because we don't know how to voice that. If I've got suppressed anger, I will tend to attract someone who might be angry. So if there is perhaps something that is unresolved in me, there'll be an event that comes that will trigger that because it wants to be resolved.
That explains why two different people can see the same thing and have two different experiences. So someone might feel angry about what has happened, and another person is, it's out of my control. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And so I like to teach people how to strengthen their own sense of self rather than protect. And I'm not saying that there aren't circumstances where we might want to protect ourselves because maybe we're not in a position to do the inner work. We might be with colleagues or somewhere where we can't go into that deep dive. One common way that I like to do it is to just imagine this shield around you. Imagine this light shield. And now again, as I say, a protection, you're putting something between you and someone else. We don't necessarily consciously then take that shield down. And so the reason I don't like the idea of protection as much as just simply working on yourself is because you don't want to then subconsciously have built up walls around you trying to protect yourself against other people, because you do see that with people who have, as children, protected themselves. And as adults, they would come see me and they then have to then take down that wall because connecting with people more intimately requires them to be vulnerable. And that vulnerability is what gave them that sense of insecurity or sense of lack of safety when they were young. And so they built that protection. In that way, we want to empower people to understand how to interact with people so that they don't need to have this barrier between them and someone else.
I love that. And I do find there's situations we will need to put that barrier up because we're just in that environment, but it's an exception as opposed to being the norm. Can you share how modalities like kinesiology and reiki work with energy, facilitate healing and transformation?
The way an energy worker make a difference is in the energy field. And so bringing a sense of coherence back into the field. You will often hear practitioners say, it's not us who heal, it's that we help you change your field so that you can then heal yourself. We don't want to endorse the idea of disempowerment, especially like for me, it's important that my clients feel empowered. They are the ones making the change and they are the ones doing the hard work because a lot of the work comes in between sessions. If we change your field so that it is more coherent, you are feeling more centered after a session, energy is flowing more easily. It's supporting health, it's supporting you to thrive, it's supporting you to make decisions more easily, it's helping you have clarity, all of those things. The first time you hit a problem after a session, that's where the real test comes. That's when you have to go, I can fall back into an old pattern or I can choose a different way. And so from a healing perspective, a session will inform you. So part of what kinesiology can help with as well is to bring some of these subconscious patterns into the conscious awareness. The power of the subconscious lies in the fact that a lot of our belief system are so hidden that we don't even know it's actually guiding our path in life. So within a session, we can unpack some of these subconscious beliefs so that we have conscious awareness of it. And that's really the first step of creating change. Once we're aware of it, we can do something about it. It's in a way moving us from feeling like we've got no choice. Often if we are reactive about someone or something, we feel like we've got no choice. I've got no choice. they just really trigger me. I have no choice. That's when we have that subconscious loop happening so subconsciously that we're not even aware that we have control over it. When we have conscious awareness of that, we kind of slow down that loop and we have more opportunity to sort of jump in and go, wait a minute, I know this loop. I know what it's doing. I'm going to maintain control. I'm going to maintain power. I'm going to choose a different way of responding. I don't have to react in the same way.
Look, that's what I've loved about our sessions, and when I tell you something that I've been feeling or thinking and you ask me those questions, it's not something I've ever thought about that way, and it's just triggered me to go, oh, yes, I didn't think of it like that. Okay. And then changing it, whereas before I was on that autopilot there, and I feel really good benefit where something will come that normally triggered me. I tend to be quite confused. Why aren't I upset? I'm usually upset. I'm usually emotional about this. Do I not care? But I realized, no, I've done the work and I've moved forward. And I feel that it helps with like illnesses.
Definitely. It's endless in terms of, how we can apply it. And often people will find that they are really good at changing their mindset in certain areas of their lives. And then it's just a matter of applying it in other areas as well.
It's a process. It takes time as you go along. I knew why I wanted to have you on the show. Like, this has been phenomenal. I always take pages of notes from our sessions, and I've done the same again here. What are some key lessons you believe that people can learn from the experience that they encounter in life, and how can that contribute to their personal growth?
I feel like one of the biggest impact in terms of change that I have had is realizing that life is happening for us. So understanding that we don't have to be the victim of everything that happens to us. Instead, understanding that we are creating our experiences, and these experiences that we have, whether it's positive or negative, is always helping us to grow. I do say it often, is that it's growth or healing or spiritual work or life is a one-way street, because I do often hear people saying that they feel like they've gone backwards, and I often disagree. I don't think that we ever do go backwards. I think that even though it does feel like we go backwards, we are looking at it from a higher perspective still. I do work on the premise that life is always moving us in the direction of growth. And I know when I have used that as my framework, it helps me understand everything so much better, and it helps me remain empowered instead of feeling like the victim, right? Because there's no more why me, because it's like, well, it's me, it's my life. These are my experiences and they all help me to grow. I've chosen them to help me grow, and they're unique to me, and it's all for my own benefit.
That's powerful. Life is happening for us. And I know when I look at some of my darkest times, I look back now in hindsight and I go, I can see why it happened to me. It was the universe going to me, hey, wake up. And they sent me all these little signals throughout that I missed, and they needed something big so that I can take action and move on. So what are your goals with Radiant Aura in the coming years, and how do you see your practice evolving?
I have just come back from a sabbatical. So Radiant Aura, I feel like, is going through its own metamorphosis. So I'm in the process of relaunching its website. I still have a website. I definitely feel like I've outgrown it. So I'm in the process of updating that. And I do have a lot of ideas coming through and not enough time. And so I'm trying not to multitask and just focusing on one project at a time. But I do have a lot of ideas on courses that I want to run and offerings that I want to be giving.
I'm excited about your courses because I love working with you. And if people want to book in an appointment, and I know you do online appointments, we've been doing all our sessions online, how can they reach out to you, book an appointment?
My website is still working at the moment. So if people can't find what they need to find, they can always email me through my website as well. But all the information about booking a session is up there. My availability is up there as well. People are also welcome to just send me a note.
And I'll put all the website, the details in the show notes. because I cannot recommend highly enough for everyone to come see you. And I know that I've sent many friends your way. 2 final questions. What is one habit that someone can start today to make a positive impact on their training or vitality? I feel like I should answer this question. Book an appointment with you.
I think we talked before about taking time out for yourself. I'm going to say meditate. Meditation can be a very loaded word because people will automatically go, I can't meditate, I can't stop thinking, that's not for me. Those are all valid because our mind is meant to think. So I often will say that the goal of meditation is not to stop thinking. The goal of meditation is to allow you to create space so that you relate to your thoughts differently. So it gives you the sense that you are not your thoughts, right? It gives you that sense of being at arm's length with your thoughts and therefore having more, I don't know if control is the right word, but more agency around the thoughts and what you choose to believe in, what you choose not to believe in. So meditation is definitely the cornerstone of my own personal health and wellness practice. It doesn't have to be sitting still. There are moving meditations that are available as well. So there are definitely different ways that you can learn to tune into yourself and to give yourself that sense of spaciousness.
I've actually recently just started walking meditations, and I find they work so much better for me than sitting after I wake up.
Yeah.
Sometimes I fall back asleep. I'm finding the results are a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. Things like even just putting on some music and dancing, anything that brings your awareness back to yourself. So like we were saying before, even if you just check in with yourself several times a day, that doesn't take a lot of time. The benefits can be quite powerful.
And lucky last question, what does dominate mean to you?
I looked up the etymology of the word dominate. I like to find out where the origin of words come from. And so I don't know if you know this, but dominate comes from the 1600s and has the meaning of, it hasn't changed a lot, but it's to rule over and control by mastery. And so when I saw that, I immediately think about sovereignty, this sense of being our own authority. And I think so often in life we give away that sense of authority to an external figure. For a long time in allopathic medicine, we listen to the doctor and we let the doctor tell us what to do, and we've lost that sense of authority over ourselves and what we want to do for ourselves. So I feel like, dominate is really about having that sense of self-authority, having that sense of self-sovereignty to make the right decisions for yourself, having a mastery over yourself.
I love that. I never looked up the origins of it. My theory was always like dominate everything that I do. So dominate being a mum, dominate being a wife, dominate my body, my health. And like you said, I'm the master of it. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you everyone for listening. Please share with someone else who would benefit from hearing all of Katie's wisdom. I know that everyone will. Also follow Katie. She's on Instagram at radiant.aura, and I'll put it all into the show notes because you'll love her messages and what she has to share. And if you haven't already, follow us at D8 Training as well. Also, please subscribe to the show. And if you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it would really be appreciated to help us grow and continue to bring such amazing guests like Katie to the show. Until next time, dominate your life.